Welcome to FFRF's Ask an Atheist. I am Elizabeth Cavell, Associate Counsel here at FFRF. As usual, if you have questions about what we're discussing today or anything related to FFRF, you can type your questions in the comments below, or you can email them to askanatheist@ffrf.org. And today I am joined by Chris Line and Colin McNamara. Both have been fellows here at FFRF since 2017. Chris is the Patrick O'Reilly Legal Fellow, and Colin is our Robert G. Ingersoll Legal Fellow. We're going to talk about the fellowship program today, and we are going to kind of talk about highlights from their 2 years here because their fellowships are wrapping up this week.
Today.
Yes. Yeah. And so we're going to talk all about the fellowship program and go through the good, the bad, and the ugly with them. But first, we are going to hear from Dan and Annie Laurie. They are checking in from Europe, where they have been traveling and they have been speaking at 2 different free thought gatherings, giving presentations and touring Europe. And there's Dan Barker. Where are you today, Dan?
Oh, hi, Liz.
Hello.
We can hear you, Dan.
So Annie Laurie is holding the iPhone, so you can't see her, but I'm standing here in Amsterdam, in Holland, right in front of the Spinoza statue, Baruch Spinoza, the famous philosopher, Jewish philosopher who was born just very close to this very spot here in Amsterdam. And we are on one of the canals. Annie Laurie, can you let Annie Laurie turn around to see a little bit of the scenery here?
Oh.
Oh, wow.
Oh, lovely. Okay, mostly the canal's the scenery.
Can you see some of that?
But yes, beautiful.
So Spinoza was a philosopher. He was a free thinker, freedom of thought, and we free thinkers owe a lot to him for the Enlightenment and all of that. So there's not much about him here except for this nice kind of what's the word for iconic statue of Spinoza here in what used to be the Jewish neighborhood before the German occupation, and now there's hardly anything left of this area. But it's a lot of fun.
Very cool.
Very
so,
cool.
Dan, tell us, where have you guys been speaking? What have you been doing in the free thought world?
So, we are in Amsterdam because Annie Laurie was invited to a conference called Dissent. It's the De Bali Art Center here in Amsterdam, and it's all about dissent, especially religious dissent. And she is going to be talking with some ex-Muslims, with Mariam Namazi, and with Sarah Hayder, and with some others about the importance of speaking up and dissenting from religion. And yesterday, separation of church and state, she's reminding me to say, yesterday Annie Laurie was interviewed by the largest newspaper here in town, the Daily Telegraph, about this conference. And then Friday is when she's on, but Friday I'm sneaking out because I was not invited to this conference, understandably. So I'm sneaking out. I'm going down to Spain on Friday to talk with a bunch of humanists in Valencia. But before that, we took a few days just to have some vacation time. We went to Brussels for 3 days, and we ate way too much chocolate.
Oh, beautiful.
And way too many frites, potato frites. And here we're having a great time in the museums and the parks and the canals of Amsterdam, just getting a feel for this very free-thinking city.
That's very cool, Dan. Now, could you get out of the way? I want to see Spinoza.
Oh, can you see Spinoza? Put it down. Put it up a little bit this way.
I really just wanted to know, what is he covered with? It looks like there's birds or something on
A
it?
little bit more. Yeah. There you go.
He's covered in birds. He's asking
Why is he covered in
Oh,
birds?
there's birds on it. There's birds all over him.
Explain.
He was kind of a pantheist.
He was a pantheist.
So,
Pantheist.
well, the birds represent this fact that Amsterdam is multicultural.
Ah.
There are people from all over the world, and he was a little bit of a pantheist. He said nature was his god. So,
Yeah.
birds were a very good symbol for Spinoza.
Very cool.
So good to see you guys.
Good to see you.
Thanks, Dan.
Chris and Colin and Liz.
Wonderful.
So thank you so much for inviting us on. We're going to have dinner in a couple of minutes.
Annie Laurie, can you just put your hand in front of the camera and wave or something? Let's let us know that you're alive. There she is.
Proof of life.
She's there, yeah.
Oh, also,
She
while we're here on the topic, it's been nice working for y'all.
It was, well, yes, Chris, thank you so much. I'm sorry I'm not, Colin,
Hi, Colin.
I'm so sorry I'm not there to say goodbye to you.
Oh, well, you have a very good excuse.
Did you hear what she said?
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
I'm sure we'll be in touch.
We'll see you around.
Yes, indeed.
Well, thanks so much for checking in, and enjoy the rest of the trip.
Thank you, and we'll see you guys next week I think on the 3rd or the 4th, we'll be back in.
All right.
Great.
Won't see you.
Bye.
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 Okay, so thanks to Dan and Annie Laurie for calling in from the canals of Amsterdam.
Beautiful.
And back to our show. Again, we are going to kind of highlight the past 2 years of our legal fellowships. And so just a little background on our fellowship program. Our fellowship program is an opportunity open to recent law school graduates to come work for FFRF as full-time staff attorneys in our legal department. They help us address state church violations in all the ways that our attorneys do that. The program offers 1-year fellowships with the possibility of a 2nd year, and both Colin and Chris have been with us for 2 full years, starting in 2017 and wrapping up now. So we will miss them a lot. They've done a ton of great work in the fellowship, and we're going to talk about some highlights that stuck out in their memories as they addressed state church violations here at FFRF over the past 2 years. So this is the good, the bad, and the ugly episode. And so we're going to start kind of talking about what you guys remember as the good.
Yeah.
So Colin, why don't you kind of give us your first highlight?
Sure. So there's no such thing as a good complaint, because it's always something bad happening. But what is good is the response. And this one is one of my favorites because it goes from being so bad to being a really excellent response. So this is something that came out of Davis County, Kentucky, where a teacher was showing this in class. Let's just take a moment to appreciate the delightful gospel music playing over what I think, if we're all looking at it right now, is not really identifiable as anything, but that is a picture of the M51 Whirlpool Galaxy. It's a picture taken by the Hubble Space Telescope, and that picture came out and a bunch of people looked at it and said, just like people will find Jesus in their toast, they looked at that and said, it's a cross, including this guy right here.
It's 31 million light years away. The Hubble Space Telescope, seeing what we cannot see, has looked into the dark black hole core of the Whirlpool Galaxy and sent us back a photograph. Here's what NASA sent us back from 31 million light years away, deep in the core of the Whirlpool Galaxy. We get this image coming back to us.
Hold for applause. There it is.
He's really excited about that.
He's pretty jazzed. So that's an X in the stars, apparently. But people identified it as a cross. Very exciting. And then this biology teacher in Kentucky showed that exact video in class, and a student in class recorded it, which we have.
So this is the Hubble Cross in the Whirlpool Galaxy. And now my understanding, if I can remember correctly, is this galaxy is supposedly, I'm going to use the word parallel. Like it's like our mirror image of the Whirlpool Galaxy. Not the Whirlpool Galaxy. Milky Way Galaxy. That's the center of it.
This is music a bit too dramatic.
I don't know.
So, yeah.
It's educational.
Very educational. By the way, the M51 Whirlpool Galaxy is not our mirror image. I have no idea what she's talking about there.
Yeah, not the thrust of the lesson.
No,
anyway.
no, not the thrust of the lesson. So then after that, after I got a hold of this, I sent a letter to the school district and complained about this. And what was shocking to me was how well they actually handled it. They did a fantastic
what was the
job.
response?
Well, at first, silence, and then through an open records request, I got the information and found that they did a full, thorough investigation into it. I got the whole investigation report. I got the teacher's personnel file, and found that they had actually looked into this, done a fantastic job. She had been officially reprimanded. She'd been suspended. She had to go to additional training. She had to sign a pledge saying that she was not going to show any like proselytizing material in class or else she'd be subject to termination. Like,
wow.
Very, very good. I was really, really impressed, and that is how you should handle those superintendents.
Right. That's a strong response.
Very
and
strong.
Unfortunately, not a terribly common response to kind of rogue teacher proselytization.
Right.
Which is appropriate, which is discipline, reprimand, formal action that sort of puts it in a teacher's record that this type of conduct is being flagged and that they're being told to knock it off.
And and also the nice epilogue to that is FFRF then rewarded that student with a Student Activist Award.
Oh, lovely.
So that worked out well. Uncommonly good.
That is uncommonly good. Chris, what's your highlight sticking out as a good
Yeah, it's hard to
outcome?
choose. There's so many
Yeah,
good
yeah.
things over a 2-year period.
When you're batting 1,000, right? Like,
Right. So, as you know, we handle a lot of school, sports, prayer-related stuff. Lots of loudspeaker prayers throughout Georgia, Alabama, all over the South, pretty much. But this past year, we learned that an attorney speaking to almost all the school districts in Alabama reiterated what we've been saying for years and told the school districts they cannot be having a loudspeaker prayer. So pretty much, as far as I understand it, almost all the schools in Alabama have now stopped or made huge changes to their loudspeaker prayer. I brought in a clip of one of those schools in Blount County that we wrote to last year, and that stopped. And so I'm using it as a representation of all of our loudspeaker prayer victories in Alabama.
Right, so that made the news, right? That
Yep.
this change in policy by Blount County. Let's see it.
Yeah, for as long as many of those neighbors in Blount County can remember, a student or volunteer has led a prayer over the public address system before football games. That all ends Friday after a complaint from an outside organization. Under Friday night lights at Blount County schools, any pregame prayers will now have to be unplugged.
One of our youth actually led the prayer over the PA system. And that was last week.
Scott Wortham is a youth minister at Remlap's First Baptist Church just down the road from Southeastern High School.
We really see no harm in praying for the welfare of our football players and those that will be playing, and protection and good sportsmanship.
But the Blount County School Superintendent says an organization outside the community recently filed a complaint about prayer over the intercom. And on guidance from attorneys, there will instead be a moment of silence. Organizations previously threatened other area schools with lawsuits, arguing that not everyone should be subjected to a prayer over a public intercom. A complaint prompted Hewitt-Trussville students to say their own prayer during a moment of silence last year. Some neighbors say even without an intercom, they'll still pronounce their faith.
We believe that that's an integral part of our life. We believe that to be able to pray, that the Bible tells us to pray without ceasing.
Now, there were a few people who reached out to me in social media context who live in Blount County that said they don't really feel like religion should be forced on everyone, but they don't want to speak out against the majority.
Shocking.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Of course, what was not highlighted by that media report was that our complaints, as they almost always do, originate from a person in the community who reaches out to us, prompting us to contact the school district, which is what happened there.
Excellent use of the word outside
Yes.
organization in there.
Did he
It's like a
mention
nice
that we're
pause for
outside?
effect
Yeah,
every time.
of course. But yeah, as you noted, we are doing this for the people in those communities. And if you're in Alabama and there's a prayer still going on, if we missed one, just go ahead and write into us, and we can, we're doing pretty well there cleaning these up.
Excellent. How did we find out about the attorney that was educating school districts? It's the same attorney that's representing multiple districts?
Yeah, I think that it was in the news in one of the stories about one of the prayers we had stopped. They sort of referenced that school districts were informed at a larger district meeting that this was the practice, which they should have known since we've told most of them.
But that's a great kind of realization of one of our goals, which is to educate school districts and school attorneys who represent school districts writ large about how to avoid liability on Establishment Clause violations. It's easy. So now
And
we're
fun.
going to move to the bad. We're going
Yeah.
to talk about you guys have some memorably bad complaints, bad for many reasons.
Yeah.
Let's start with you, Colin.
It's
Tell
going
us
to get
your
worse.
bad.
Don't worry, though. We get to the ugly later on. This one's bad because of how it turned out. I mean, in terms of the process, it was all right. We had a fun time, honestly, doing it. But we kind of found out at the 11th hour that DuPage County, Illinois, which is only like 2.5 hours south of here, was going to be taking a vote on whether they were going to keep their invocations before their county board meetings. We found out about it actually because Hemant Mehta, the friendly atheist, gave the invocation the week before. He gave the invocation and then they were talking about scrapping it. And so we went down there to testify. Ryan, Jane, and I drove down there. We kind of took a wrong turn in Albuquerque eventually and got there a little late. Like we were just barely on time. I mean, we were flying to get there. And Bruce, our producer, drove us, and we just hopped out of the van and ran into the county board meeting to get there in time. And we both testified. And here, this clip you're going to see is from the news bite from when we testified. So you're going to hear my voice narrating over this. We testified during the public comment period, along with 8 other local people who showed up, almost all of which were on our side. We're testifying in favor of getting rid of the invocation. Only one person spoke during the public comment period who wanted to keep it, which was a great showing and a pleasant surprise. Ryan spoke to the legal issues surrounding having invocations, the establishment clause problems with having them at county board meetings. And I spoke to why having invocations is just a bad idea for reasons of public policy. My point is simply this. Not everyone in this room agrees in matters of faith, and that is fine. In fact, it's wonderful. But in a pluralistic society, in a pluralistic county and state such as this, we function best when government simply stays neutral in matters of religion altogether. When the people of DuPage County come into this room, they should feel welcome and accepted, regardless of their religious or non-religious beliefs. Opening meetings with an invocation is a poor way to accomplish that. If the board wishes to honor tolerance, inclusion, and mutual respect as you say you do, it's best to just eliminate the invocation altogether.
Colbert? Aye. Desar?
No.
In the end, the county did vote to keep the invocations. However, I'm pretty sure we had an impact, and I think having all of the citizenry come out and testify against it probably showed the people that this is not something that can persist for long into the future. And that's, of course, why we do this. That's why we took the time to drive a few hours down to Illinois. All of this matters no matter where it's happening, and we want to be there to support people in their communities who are standing up, speaking out, and saying that they don't want their government endorsing religion any longer.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
A very uncool outcome.
Yeah, that was the bad part. They voted to keep it. Yeah.
But definitely educating, and it looked like a pretty full room, so you got some kind of ears and eyeballs on the obvious kind of discussion around why this is bad policy, even if it's legal. That
clip also serves as a disturbing reminder that I only own 2 blazers. I was wearing this exact thing, and that other than the tie, anyway.
This is the public sector.
Yeah, I know,
baby.
Public sector chic.
Okay, so we are talking about the bad. Chris, what's your bad? Not to be confused with ugly.
Yeah.
The real bad.
Right. So the reason why this is bad, we've spent a lot of time over the past 2 years writing letters to the Todd Becker about the Todd Becker Foundation, not to the Todd Becker Foundation. Right. In 2017, we sent a mass mailing to hundreds of school districts. Each week, I write individually to whatever school district they're going to.
Yeah.
This is a terrible group that's going in and
for people who don't follow your rants on Twitter.
We did a whole show on it.
There was a whole show. Yeah.
Let's just remind our viewers, who are the Todd Becker Foundation? What do they do, and why are we interested in them?
I think the best way to do that actually is we can just start with the clip that I have for this section that will explain
Here's their promo video.
what they're doing.
It was born as a ministry to reach public high schools with the life-changing gospel. What was once a hopeless tragedy, God has transformed into a powerful assembly that brings His word into public schools. And nearly 7 years later, over 200 high schools have been reached, and nearly 50,000 students have been touched in the bleachers and gym floors of public high schools across the Midwest. Week after week, we've carried the message of the cross into these schools, lives have been changed, broken hearts made new, and hundreds upon hundreds have come to Jesus Christ. But as you know, reaching public schools with God's Word is an effort that many oppose, and that's why today I'm asking for your help.
Is that what he sounds like? Is that Keith Becker?
Yeah, that's what he sounds like during his presentation.
I never knew what his voice was.
Wow. So this is a ministry that targets public schools with their assemblies.
Yep, they go in, they will give a daytime assembly with the students, which they clean up a little bit. It's not as over-the-top proselytizing as their evening presentation, but it's pretty bad. They do a Bible verse, they talk with students afterwards, try to
It's about
recruit
good
them.
character and following the narrow path and that sort of thing.
And they use it to recruit students for local churches. They have local church people come in to help and talk with students afterwards. And as I said, the reason why it's bad is because it's still going on. I think we're making some strides. I think they're getting into less schools. We're getting schools to say they're not inviting them back, things like that. But this is still overall continuing. This group is going around and going into our public schools to try to recruit kids. And so that's why I put it under bad. But FFRF will continue going after them, and hopefully this practice will end at some point in the future.
Well, I was going to say you were being very, very humble when you said that we write tons of letters on them. Really, what you meant to say,
I write tons of letters. Yes,
you have been.
We've been trying to kind of nip these assemblies in the bud by warning school districts that we know are being targeted by this group. Warning them off. Their stated goal, that was a fundraising video from the Todd Becker Foundation. Their stated goal is to exploit the public schools in an effort to, evangelize and spread their religious
And that's one of the
message.
worst things about them is that they're so open about what they do.
Yeah.
There is a lot of groups will do a pretty good job of hiding what their true intention is. They are just blatant about it, and yet school districts are still inviting them in every week.
Well, I think their argument on the administrator-facing side is that they give a, secular assembly that's about making good choices, and it all, emanates from this Todd Becker's brother's death in a car accident or something as a teenager, and so they make an argument. But obviously, it's a group with a hidden agenda, and so we are. Shout out to us in that video as the people who oppose our public schools being used as a mission field. So
but Chris has been the tip of the spear on coordinating.
Still in the
response,
bad column because
keep it up.
They're continuing to do what they do. But
hopefully we'll move it to the good sometime. Soon.
Come back next year.
Let's go straight to the ugly.
It's gonna get bad, y'all.
Okay, so you have an example from Missouri, Colin. What is your ugly highlight?
Let me tell y'all
from the fellowship.
Yeah, let me tell y'all a little story about the worst week of my life at FFRF. In Camden County, Missouri, I got a complaint about it was a county courthouse. I think it was actually like the county tax assessor's office within the county courthouse, where there was a Bible verse hanging on the wall. Oh yeah, there it is. There's a Bible verse hanging on the wall, and then right above, that's actually the absentee ballot box. So that's where you have to go to vote to drop off your absentee ballot. So there's a Bible verse over a flag, and then in the lobby was that painting of what is known as the September 11th cross. It's the two steel beams from the World Trade Center that people thought looked like a cross. So someone took that and then made a painting of it and put it up there, and it had been there for years. I got a complaint about it. I wrote about it, sent the letter, and I really to this day don't know exactly what happened, but because I didn't issue a press release on it, and I didn't really talk about it much, and it was crickets for a month. And then a month after I sent the letter, it just exploded.
Yeah.
It was all over the news. I'm getting calls from Fox News. I'm getting calls from national news. And then all of a sudden, and a lot of local news, I talked to the same reporter, local radio station host multiple times. We became friends throughout this whole thing. And then they called a county board meeting with the public to discuss their response. And it got so bad. I mean, hundreds of people showed up.
Wow.
And there was one guy, and whoever you are, I'm sorry I don't know your name. Whoever you are, you're a true American hero, and thank you for showing up for us. But there was one guy who testified in favor of our position of removing these displays, and then there was a lot of other people who were varying levels of angry to insane.
Okay.
And let's see of the guy who was on our side, and then one particularly off-the-wall fellow who testified as well.
To me, this isn't about a picture. This is about principle. It's about the Constitution. You know, Mr. Hasty quoted the Declaration of Independence, but to me, that's not the document that's in question. What's in question is the U.S. Constitution, the First Amendment, and the Establishment Clause. You know, I absolutely understand that the majority of this county is Christian. I'm a Christian myself. I'm not.
Folks, come on. Let's give the man an opportunity to speak.
I'm not a busybody atheist, nor is the gal who filed this complaint. Currently, I'm only here on her behalf because she's out serving our country with AmeriCorps, out doing volunteer work, helping homeless people. I work in substance abuse recovery. I work for the people of this community every day. We're not here to push you guys around. We're here because the principle of the matter says that picture shouldn't be here. As a matter of fact, them removing the other picture sort of, to me, articulates the idea that they know they aren't necessarily in the right. So, I think really the question it comes down to is, I spoke to one of the attorneys from Freedom from Religion yesterday. They intend to take this all the way to court. So, well, here's, guys, it's great that you're applauding that, but the fact is, you're going to lose. And, well, here's the thing. You know, Mr. Hasty and Mr. Williams both. Mr. Hasty and Mr. Williams both spoke to the fact that this county is a little bit cash-strapped. We got roads we got to fix. We got deputies who need a pay raise. I absolutely agree with both those things. I think it's a far more fiscally responsible thing to do to spend that money on roads or cop salaries than fighting a lawsuit from this organization. It just is. I mean, do you guys is it worth that much to you?
Yes, absolutely. It's our principle as well.
Okay.
I never said that, by the way. I never told him I was going to take it all the way to court. I never talked to that guy, actually. I don't know who he is. So
all the way to court.
He made that
true.
one up.
Yeah, that's not true.
Yeah, that part didn't happen.
Anyway.
Poor guy.
That was amazing.
Yeah. I love the laughter when he said he's a Christian.
Yeah.
How could you possibly be if you don't want the painting in the lobby?
Uh-huh. So, as far as we know, that painting is still there.
As far as I know. Yeah, Bruce, do we have the clip of the other gentleman?
The next couple of years with the Democrats taking control of the House, it's going to get crazy. And stuff like this has got to stop. But the gentleman that was here, speaking up for the ones, he's right. It's going to, I don't want it to cost us any money. I don't want to see any money spent on this. We have got to stop. I mean, we have got to get a just city, state government to help us on this because state rights matters. Look at all the Confederate memorials that have been taken down. St. Louis. They want to do away with the liberal nut jobs want to do away with the Constitution. They want to destroy this country. And like I say all the time, God help us if they ever get control of everything, because 1861 will happen again. It will happen again, and believe me, freedom is worth fighting for and dying for.
That's right.
So stand up, Camden County. I don't want to see it cost us a lot of money, but this is just the beginning of all the nonsense. It's going to get worse and worse and worse. And God help us. Thank you.
That escalated fast.
I know. Civil War starts over 9/11 cross painting is an Onion headline. But yeah, we went straight from a county board meeting to when can we start the next Civil War.
Okay, well, that was ugly.
Real
Chris,
ugly.
give us your ugly coming from the great state of Texas.
Yeah, no, it's cute that that you thought that was ugly, and you had someone in support
Yeah,
of a position.
that's true.
When we complained about 4 crosses on the San Jacinto County Courthouse, 600 people showed up in a town of 900, and as far as I know, we did not have anyone supporting our position on the cross.
Wow.
So let's just start with the clip that'll tell you a little
win.
bit about what's going on.
Dominique, Cold Spring is a small town of not more than 900 people. There are a dozen or so Christian churches here, and those crosses on the courthouse behind me and those we talked to say they are appalled that anyone would want to take them down. So here's what happened. A foundation called the Freedom from Religion Foundation, based in Wisconsin, says a longtime resident of Cold Spring complained to them about the crosses. And those we talked to have a hard time believing that.
It's crazy stuff. Yeah, I mean, I'm not really sure why they want them down.
God doesn't force any of us to accept him. So what is that cross hurting? That cross isn't hurting anybody.
I think it's wrong that they come up here to our little bitty town. I want to come in here and boss us around. If you don't like it, go back to Washington, D.C.
So the foundation sent a letter to the county judge here asking him to take the crosses down immediately because they, quote, are an unconstitutional endorsement of religion, end quote.
The complaint is the display of Latin crosses on a public courthouse. Any display of a religious symbol like that by the government is a constitutional violation of the Establishment Clause.
So we've looked at some of the cases that the Freedom from Religion Foundation has had here in Texas. Sometimes they have been successful in asking courthouses and others to take down crosses and other religious displays, and sometimes they have not.
Wow.
Hello. That was interesting.
Why are there like nails coming out of the crosses?
Those are lights.
Oh!
So they're lit up at Christmas time, and also the day they voted to keep them up, they decided to light them up at night as
Say it looked like a torture. Well, I guess it is a torture
nice
device.
symbol to nice symbol to us.
More like a torture device.
Yep.
So that's pretty ugly. Those crosses still stand.
They're still up. You know, we wrote to the judge asking him to take them down. He decided to put it to the people who, surprisingly, overwhelmingly decided they were fine.
Okay.
So
that sounds like how the Constitution works.
Yep, exactly.
So this is to be continued. Of course, these crosses, these are sort of like cavalry-style crosses that were erected, you know, in the last 5 years by the county or by the department. So not sure what the secular rationale is there. So they probably haven't heard The Last of Us.
Wow.
We actually have some questions.
Ooh.
So I'm going to go right to it. Well, maybe we already touched on this, but Phil Monroe asked, what's the most disappointing situation that you have dealt with?
Ooh. Can we focus on the positive, folks? The most disappointing, what do you think, Chris? The United States Supreme Court, I think, is the answer to that question,
I think
broadly
that's
speaking.
Generally.
Yeah. Just everything.
It's been a disappointing couple of years.
Yeah. It's not my fault.
I think for everybody, the courts, for across many issues that are important to people who care about civil liberties, the courts, the sort of remaking of the courts in this, ultra-conservative image has really been alarming, and that's not been no different for us. The courts have we've seen a shift in the courts in the last 3 years for better, well, not for better, for worse.
For worse,
and you're right, it has affected everyone who values civil rights of all different areas, but I think it's hit us especially hard because despite what some of those people said in those meetings, this idea of like the liberals, always siding with us, we don't, just because it's not a conservative judge doesn't necessarily mean we're going to win on our issues. Our issues seem to be especially negatively impacted by the changes in the court, unfortunately.
Right.
Agreed.
So a somewhat related question from Matt Pearson. What types of complaints did you get the most backlash from? So I think you got a nice flavor for that down on the ground in some of these communities that are really insular, very heavy majoritarian, homogenous religious culture. That's what you saw the guy trying to sort of speak in favor of our complaint in, was that Camden County?
That was Camden County.
So, I mean, that's kind of the flavor when we are complaining about a display that's in a really small community. But what do you guys think are really have stuck out to you, or have you seen any patterns in backlash?
Well, going back to my loudspeaker prayers, pretty much
Right.
any time we're able to stop those, you will get hundreds of people showing up to pray on their own, which of course is
Totally
fine.
Cool with
So-
us.
But they do often, I mean, the news often won't understand that and will then air that as a news item, as in like,
Look
oh,
at this
group
act of
community
disobedience.
rejects,
Yeah.
you know.
Mhm.
And it's like, no, you can.
It's like, no, we're all on the same page. You should pray privately
You're
in
doing
the
it right.
bleachers.
Exactly.
That was similar to one I had that I worked on with Sam Grover. That was a high school in Texas that flew a Christian flag above the school, like the white flag with the red cross and the blue blazon. And we got that taken down, and then a bunch of the students came to school and they had gotten those flags, clearly just bought them, by the way. They still had the folds in them, like they still had wrinkles. But they put the flags on their trucks and on their cars and stuff. And it was run in the conservative news media as, school stands up to FFRF. No, that's actually fine. We don't care. That's totally
Right.
beside the
School
point.
stops promoting religion, returns it to the private conscience of students.
Exactly what we wanted, right
Good
on.
day. So Josh Hartman, this is a good question. How can I apply to become a legal fellow at FFRF? This is a good time to say that you can find out all about our fellowship, including requirements for how to apply at ffrf.org/fellowship.
We are filled right now. We have 2 new ones coming in.
Right, starting this year.
So next year, maybe.
Yeah, but they're rolling. We're always taking applications for the next fellowship period. We also have internships that are both during the school year for people who are local or who have the ability to extern or something through their school,
Yep,
and summer summer internships. So you can check all that out at ffrf.org.
And I interned for 2 years before I became a fellow, so it's kind of a transition for me. Colin obviously just showed up one day and just started working.
I applied after the dedeadline and got the job. So.
Yeah, he just.
So wait till 2 days after the deadline to apply for the fellowship, and you're guaranteed.
It's very poor advice.
It's the only kind of advice I give. Wait, I should not say that I'm going into law practice.
Yes. So I think that's pretty much it, except for this question. That's
Oh,
funny.
boy.
Hey, you guys got a second?
Oh, yeah.
You just hang on. Sorry.
All right.
Oh, my.
We have cake.
Whoa.
So
What
this
the-
is our send-off.
Look at that beautiful handwriting.
Live. Don't put
my.
the cake. Don't put the cake on camera.
See this?
I was about to yell at you.
So this is some people from our
guys.
legal department and others on our staff, and we are going to send off Chris and Colin from our fellowship. Thank you so much for 2 great years of work.
Why don't you here, but see if you can hold it without
Don't spill it.
Wouldn't that be a great way to end the episode, though?
And yes, that actually is our show for today. And don't forget, one way you can help FFRF is by contacting government officials who violate the law. Receive our action alerts on your smartphone by texting FFRF to 52886. Data rates may apply. That's FFRF to 52886. Please become a member of FFRF. Help us in our vital work to keep state and church separate and to educate the public about non-theism. Go to ffrf.org, phone us at 800-335-4021. Thank you for watching. Thank you, Colin and Chris, for working and
Come work here and you
fighting
might get
the
cake.
good fight. Yes. We will see you next week for another episode of FFRF's Ask an Atheist. We are going to eat cake.